Gentlemen, this is James from 3 Pedal Special, and today I just purchased a Silicon Graphics Indy for my N64 development, as well as a CRT TV for debug purposes. I will be getting this thing up and running soon. It was a pickup from Bowling Green University Technology, well, from a tech salvage. And it's a wonderful piece of computing history. I still have to get it open. The rear end is giving me some trouble. But when I open it up, I'll be able to put the video in here and discuss a little bit about what's in here. Now that I have got some extra cables and some peripherals, I want to see if I can get this thing to boot. Now, I tried already, and when I plugged it in, I didn't even need to turn anything on, and the power supply started going nuts. So I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I will do it to show you guys what's going on. I still need to get a 13W3 connector to VGA so I can display it on the screen, and it may or may not show an error message. According to SGI, what happens is the red LED pops on, and it stays there, and no matter if I press the button, no matter what it does, it just kind of sits there. So my plan is now to keep it on for about a minute and see if it shuts off by itself, because that's, according to the instruction manual, what it does. But I don't know if there's an issue with the cable, if it's allowing too much current, or what. I don't know what it is. But this seems like a fully loaded device. I mentioned before I haven't been able to get this off, so I'm going to try to get that off after, see if I can get it to shut off. But yeah, so here's what happens. So, power cable. Finagle this in here. Okay, and as you can hear, there goes the fans. So already we're on, and I haven't touched anything. So what I'm going to do is press the power button, see if it'll generate an interrupt. Power button has been pressed. Okay, and I'm going to wait about a minute and see if anything happens. I'll update you guys when that comes. So upon recent discovery, I figured out from the internet and some other Indy users that the red LED indicates that the system, at least on this side, so the motherboard, CPU, and all that wonderful stuff, isn't responding at all. So the power supply, and I'm not entirely sure why the engineers have this kind of fault mode where the power supply turns on and it's drawing power, but there's no response from the system. I'm not entirely sure why that's there, maybe for diagnostic purposes, but I'm not getting any blinking LEDs. I'm simply just getting a red one. So there could be a number of things. The first thing it could be is the RAM. Well, I guess in transit, maybe it got jarred a bit, and I don't know where it's been other than from where I ordered it to my place. So it could be that the RAM, which I believe is somewhere right in here once I get this cover off, is jarred, so I could try and push down on it, but I have to be very careful with ESD, which is electrostatic discharge, meaning that these components are very susceptible to damage from, like, let's say if I rub my feet on the carpet and then touch one of the components. So I might want to try and wear a grounding strap and hook up to a power supply and try and do this. Another thing that somebody told me, or not told me, but on a forum, noticed that the red LED sometimes is on for a while, but then it'll boot. So I might leave it on for a few minutes yet, see what happens, but it just seems odd to me that the power supply kicks on immediately when it gets power. That's not usually how those things are supposed to work, but either way, I think something is wrong with the board components, so I'm going to carefully try and work on those. And if I can't get it up and running, oh well, this is still a great collector's item, but I'd love to get this development environment up and going. This is a cool piece of computer history, and I'd also like to, I'm going to get that 13W3 connector and hook it up to the to VGA to get to a monitor. I'd also love to have that to see if there's any diagnostic data of any kind, but I'm going to start doing some digging and see if there's anything I can do. Also, if you guys have any information on troubleshooting this bad boy, I'd appreciate it. I'm very new to, I guess, these kind of systems in general, Silicon Graphics. I thought it would be a lot of fun to kind of get up and running. My ultimate goal is to start developing some N64 games, so on this bad boy, to give an authentic kind of feel to it. So if you guys have any tips or tricks of how to get this thing up and running, or if you've encountered similar issues and what's happened from it, I'd appreciate sharing those experiences. You can just leave them in the comments below. Alright, so some good news. I was actually able to get this cover off, And I was able to do it by tapping this little finger piece here with a hammer, and lightly, nice and easy. But now it's revealed here the circuitry, and it's interesting for me to look at some of this. And this thing is absolutely loaded. I mean, look at this. This RAM is all the way up to 256, the highest spec that you could get. It's got both the Z board in here for the graphics and everything. This thing is absolutely loaded. So it's a bit concerning to me that this thing isn't turning on. But I'd like to see specifically what I can do to help get this up and running. And I believe there is a hard drive in here as well. Right in there. So the cool thing about this is that if I do get this up and running, this is one beast of the Indy machine. This is about as good as it can get. So the first thing I'm going to do is start checking to see if these RAM ports are, I guess, in place. But first, let's see what happens when I try and boot it up with the top open. Kind of interested to see what this looks like on the other side. So let me find out. Okay, red LED is on. I don't know if there's any physical indication on the logic board. I don't see anything going on. So what I'm going to try doing is tapping the power button. I don't see any interrupts being generated on the board at all. But man, that board is loaded. Well, I'm going to stop the camera for a bit here and do some more inspection. So one last piece before I go. Just looking at, I'm trying to get a good gauge on the chipsets here. I believe this is for the graphics processing unit. Well, it wasn't called that at the time. But the architecture, it's kind of cool that they branded it that way. But the architecture is really fascinating. It's even got a Dallas timekeeper. That's really cool. It's really fascinating because, oddly enough, I have a textbook on what they use for their main architecture for the CPU, as well as the N64. So this is really interesting because, as an embedded systems engineer, I can really appreciate pretty much every single detail about how to develop for this system. So this will even, I think, help me maybe a little bit with troubleshooting, because you do get some data off on one of the serial lines here for about boot up information, which I might throw an oscilloscope on or logic analyzer and figure out what's going on with that. But it's really, really cool. I will talk to you guys later about this. I have more work to do with it. But as for right now, thanks again. Please comment, like, subscribe if you want to see what happens with this bad boy. And if you have if anybody who owns one of these has any helpful tips and tricks, or if they've been through the same issues with the interesting boot light problem, and if they have any tips and tricks, I would die to have some of those, because there's really, as you might imagine, there's really not much support online, and it's just going to take a lot of trial and error. But thank you again all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. As from me, James 3 Pedal Special, hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Peace.